Well, hello and welcome to episode number 293 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. I'm Carlos, and we are back in the PT UK studios this week. It's all well and not covered in soot or, fireman footsteps, I should say, downstairs, which are still on the carpet, I have to say, Matt, aren't they? How are you, Matt Smith?
Yes, I'm fine, thank you. Yes, I'm good.
Yeah? You recovered after last week's slightly intense situation.
It was. I'll be honest with you. It's a weekend that I'm either don't want to forget. No, I do want to forget and don't want to remember, or something like that. But anyway, I don't really want to talk about it.
We've sorted that all out now. It's all done,
isn't
it? It's lovely,
done and
everything's lovely.
Stuff. Yes, Mother had a bit of excitement because there was a house full of firemen. So it's not all bad. It's the most fun she's had on a Friday night for many years.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we are back, and everything's good. So how are things? Have you been coaching this week? Anywhere
I have.
nice?
I've been doing lots of driving, mainly unexcited. They very kindly didn't send me to London on Wednesday, which is where I was supposed to be going, because I might have been a bit delicate, obviously, after the last week. So I've been mainly local this week. Nowhere of any real note. I think I've got Yarmouth next week, but
well, this week, under advisement from Matt, I had a little jolly into London yesterday, and I went and ticked off one of my bucket list items, and I went to view HMS Belfast and went on board.
Was it good?
It was amazing.
Yeah,
it is fantastic. It's a brilliant museum, floating museum, and for anyone who's interested in battleships, should go and have a look around HMS Belfast, because you can literally go. Well, you can go down to the keel near enough.
Yes,
it's that in depth. But I will say it's not if you have a broken leg or have no legs or anything like that. It's not the best place to go because it's quite narrow.
Lots of stairs and steps and stuff. But it's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth a visit if you're in London.
I mean, it's £18 to get in for an adult, but it's absolutely worth it.
Did you go to the Churchill War Rooms? Because that was the other place I gave you.
No, unfortunately, I had to actually go and do some work.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Oh, right.
I know, it's terrible. I was with the boss as well, so I couldn't really.
So you couldn't really wiggle out.
To be fair, I was working and looking around HMS Belfast.
Right.
If you can put
that's fine. That's all right. I'm a coach driver. I'm very familiar with that concept. When we get parked up somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
So joining us this week as well, back in his stately home in Buckinghamshire, is of course the legend that is Neville Bounds.
Hello, good evening. Yes, I'm back for some more. I was away last week on my birthday when all the excitement was going on in the Smith household there. But seriously, I'm glad that everybody was okay. And it wasn't. I mean, it was bad, but it could have been a whole lot worse as well. I guess.
Yeah.
I'm glad everybody's okay. But,
yes, me too. I won't lie.
Yes. But no, it's been a good week for me. I've spent a couple of days in Belfast this week, Monday and Tuesday. Really enjoyed that. And work's getting very busy at the moment, so I'm flying all over the shop, which is nice. And really, really good times actually. So looking forward to another great show.
Excellent.
So also joining us across the pond in his home studio, and is of course the king of all pilots, and he's also he's very busy, a busy pilot, I think, recently. So welcome onto the show. Back as always, it's Armando.
Yeah, I think there's about 300,000 pilots worldwide that listen to this show that just rolled their eyes when you said that.
I wish we had 300,000 people listening.
Yeah. How are you, Armando?
I'm well. I'm glad to be back home in North Carolina. As you guys know, I was in Colorado for a couple weeks flying a Baron, and I got there Sunday, so 2 Sundays ago, and that is the same day that they had a massive snowstorm. So I was actually grounded for about 4 days, just waiting for the weather to clear and trying to remember how to drive in that much snow. But once it cleared up, it was fantastic, and I really enjoyed flying out there in the Colorado Rockies, and it's just every flight was a beautiful flight, and it was just a whole other flying experience that was really great. But probably the biggest news for the week is this is officially the public announcement.
Drum roll.
Yeah, so I did
That is
get
the
hired
worst
on.
drum roll ever.
Did Carlos just fall down the stairs?
I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not quite sure. Quite sure. I thought what I thought it was. I thought we were going to have to open a window in a minute. But anyway, there we are.
Now, Mac, this piece of news that Armando's got, you wouldn't have heard about, I don't think. So this is quite exciting.
All right. You have my attention.
So here in the U.S., we have what's called Part 135 carriers, so they're either regional, on-demand, or scheduled operations. So I did get hired on with a Part 135 airline here in the U.S. And for the purposes of the podcasting and in tradition of podcasting, we're going to call them Acme Infinity. And it'll make sense once you figure out why.
Yeah.
So I got hired on. I'll be flying the PC-12 at first for probably a year and a half or so, and very quick. I start training on December 10th, so don't have a lot of time, and I'll be headed up to Denver for ground school, and then home for the holidays, then back up to Denver for sim and aircraft training. So I'll be joining the ranks of the professional pilot world post-military here.
Wow.
Well done, Armando.
How cool is that?
Thanks,
Congratulations. A little round of
applause,
applause.
Well done.
Good. Yes, absolutely.
But more important than that, sitting right next to me is the man, the myth, the legend, Matthew Bunting Frame, who is all the way from Australia.
G'day guys, how you going?
Now I have many questions. So how come you're in Australia? You're not normally. You're in Australia. Sorry, I should stress. I haven't had a drop to drink. I promise. I'm just a bit tired. What brings you to Charlotte?
Well, I've come to Charlotte just to catch up with some friends, but I've come to the States on urgent family business. And, basically flown out on Saturday from Australia, and then it's been a whirlwind kind of trip and dealing with family stuff and it's been pretty intense, but it's been great just to decompress down here from the hills in Charlotte with Armando, and I caught up with Dr. Steph also today, which is fantastic. I was very lucky.
Yeah, very is. So now, Armando, you've sent me a picture here, haven't you? What's that all about? Is that? So
that was up in Denver, and that's a picture that I managed to take as we were taking off out of the Colorado Springs airport.
You're right.
And it's just I mean, you're taking off at 5,000 feet, 6,000 feet field elevation, and the mountains are towering over you an extra 6,000 feet or so, if not more. So I got a couple pictures there, and then another one where we were sharing a ramp with a Air Force C-17. Amongst other things, I think the whole week I was out there, I saw A-10s, F-22s, a couple F-16s came by, some Ospreys, a C-17. So it's pretty funny to be flying a Baron and you're taxiing behind an A-10, or the tower will tell you, hey, give way to the flight of A-10s, and you just say, okay, yeah, sure, will do.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Great. So joining us,
press the wrong buttons.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I always figured it was like one of the James Bond cars where it'll just spit oil out the back or something like that, and then I would skid up. Never mind.
So joining us in the PTUK studios this week, we thought we'd have a guest join us in the studio just for a change, and it's safe to say our guest this week has probably logged more air miles in the last 6 months than all of us have earned in the last 10 years. So welcome onto the show. It's Will Hayes.
Hi.
How are you, Will?
Still getting over jet lag. Well, not quite jet lag, but yeah, still getting over the time difference from Bangladesh back to here. So.
Oh, Bangladesh. So what was the airline of choice for that one?
That was KLM into Schiphol, then Emirates.
Oh, you weren't there while all this squawk code stuff was kicking off, were you?
No, I don't think so.
No, okay.
And then it was Emirates into Dubai, Emirates into Dakar, and then Bitsman Airways or some. I think it was a local airline from Dakar into Chittagong. So
wow,
that was 3 airlines, 1 trip.
Okay, but it's safe to say Will has travelled on many airlines. I think you said you sort of stopped counting at 30 airlines. I think sort of around about. And Will's travelled in quite a few different classes, including business class as well. So we're going to have a chat with Will later on the show in regards to just what he thinks about the whole NPE or passenger experience. So I think Nev will probably do a good thing at leading that. I think, wouldn't you, Nev?
Yeah.
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah, down.
But we've got lots coming up in the show. We're going to say a quick hello to everyone who's joined us in the chat room this evening. All the usual family members in there. We've got, let's all quick flick through. We've got Dr. Steph, as we said, Captain Al, our main man Micah is in the chat room. Tanya W, scrolling up. Stuart Thompson, hello to you, Stuart. Auntie Liz is in the chat room. We've got Richard Adams, Tony S, Chris Griggs, Graham Haley. Just trying to scroll so I don't miss anyone. Did I say Rick Bell? Hello, Rick Bell. Pilot Pip as well has joined us in the chat room this evening. If I've missed anyone, very sorry. But thanks to everyone for joining us in the live chat room this evening for the show. So we've got loads of news to get through this week, plus a little splattering of military, I think, at some point, if we have time, because obviously we want to have a good chat with Will about all his flying experiences. And we're going to sort of probably ask Will what his best or favourite airline is, I think, out of all the ones he's flown. So think about it.
I think I know what it might be, if I'm honest. But anyway, yeah.
Say BA and keep Nev happy. Right, so we are.
Oh, no, I don't,
no.
I don't have good thoughts on BA at all.
Oh, dear.
Oh, dear.
Badly. We better,
Nev, cover your ears.
Nev.
I just didn't hear that.
No, okay, fair enough.
So we are going to start the show then, as we do each week, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if you're ready, Armando.
Ready to go.
And if you're ready, Matt Bunting Frame.
They're muted, fine, anyway.
They're muted, fantastic.
Yeah.
And if you're ready, Nev.
Yeah.
I think we're all ready to go here, aren't we?
Yeah, why not? Let's go.
Let's go. So, kicking off this week's first news story, this one is on the npr.org website. That's a new one for us this week. This headline: German airline Lufthansa grounds 1,300 flights as flight attendants strike. Wow, this is another big airline having some strike problems. So Germany's largest airline, Lufthansa, has grounded 1,300 flights as the carrier attempts to weather the internal turbulence, very good, caused by thousands of its flight attendants that have gone on strike. The walkout, expected to last 2 days, is impacting travel hubs throughout Europe. The airline apologised to passengers for the inconvenience, while the flight attendants union, the UFO, says the strike was unavoidable because labour negotiations with Lufthansa are at a stalemate. As NPR's Rob Schmitz reports, a walkout affects some 180,000 flights. Thousands of Lufthansa flight attendants are striking over pay, pensions and working conditions, and they're not even planning to return to work until Friday evening, Schmitz told NPR's newscast unit on Thursday. Lufthansa and the union representing the flight attendants have been at odds for months over the union's legal status, and a last-minute effort by the airline to halt the strike failed after a court in Frankfurt confirmed the walkout was legal, Schmitz said. Lufthansa said it was forced to scrap 700 flights on Thursday, and some 600 flights were affected today, warning that tens of thousands of people will be hit by the industrial action. So obviously we've had this with BA. Who else have we had strike action with lately?
Ryanair did sort of
Ryanair
summer,
had some
didn't
issues,
they?
didn't they? Yeah. So Lufthansa obviously being quite a big airline in Europe and carrying lots of people, especially in and across to the States. They have quite a big presence out there. Lufthansa, Will, ever had any issues with those at all?
I've never flown.
No?
No.
Really?
No, it's one of those ones I've never flown with.
Wow. Gosh.
See, for many years I've just stuck mainly with KLM. I like KLM.
Okay.
But yeah, I've had a spattering of other airlines, but Lufthansa's never been one of them.
Anyone else? Nev, I think you've flown with Lufthansa before.
Yeah,
quite
a few times actually in the past when I was a Star Alliance card holder. But great airline. Good there's the trouble is their schedules a bit like BA's. They're very very tight, I think. And,
Yeah.
Frankfurt Airport's a bit mad at times, but nonetheless, it is a very decent airline, I think.
Yeah, it's a shame when things like this happen, because obviously it affects not just the passengers, but obviously the flight attendants or the cabin crew must have a reason, as is with the pensions and pay stuff. So perhaps they haven't had a pay rise for a while.
No, indeed.
Could be.
Indeed. I should just say, apologise. We're having a few problems with Will's mic at the moment, which I'm trying to work out how I'm going to stop it from buzzing. But it's why it's a bit quiet. So apologies for that. I will try and work out something after I've read this story, which is, as always, story number 2 is a Ryanair story. This is on The Independent this week. And the headline is Ryanair rejects 737 safety claims as rubbish. So Ryanair has rejected as rubbish a newspaper report that it failed to disclose that 3 of its planes have been grounded. The Guardian is reporting that 3 of Ryanair's Boeing 737s are being repaired after checks on aircraft in service in China revealed cracks in a key component. On some older 737s, cracks have been found in the pickle fork, which attaches the wings to the fuselage. When the problem was identified, the US Federal Aviation Administration issued an airworthiness directive that instructed airlines to inspect planes with more than 30,000 cycles, takeoffs and landings within 60 days. Over the past 5 weeks, around 50 older models of the twin jet have been grounded for repairs worldwide, with Gol of Brazil, Qantas of Australia and Southwest of the US among those to find faulty aircraft. Ryanair is Europe's biggest budget airline and has a fleet of more than 400 Boeing 737-800 jets. While the airline says that the average age of its fleet is 6.5 years, some planes are significantly older. Ryanair says that 70 of its aircraft have been inspected and the rate of finding faults is lower than 5% worldwide average. The 3 aircraft affected are registered as Echo India Delta Alpha Lima, Echo India again Delta Charlie Juliet, and Echo India Delta Charlie Lima. The first is 16 years old, the other 2 are a year younger. Records show that all 3 operated UK services a month ago, but none has flown commercially since the 9th of October. During the winter season, Ryanair routinely grounds dozens of aircraft because of low demand. A spokesperson for the carrier said this morning's reports on the pickle fork issue in the Guardian newspaper are utter rubbish. Ryanair openly confirmed to the Guardian newspaper yesterday that its tiny number of findings would not affect either Ryanair's operating fleet or flights because the airline has moved to its winter schedule from the end of October, with the cracks are unconnected with the Boeing 737 MAX, which is grounded worldwide following the usual drivel on the end. So yes, it's,
the one thing that worries me is 2 years ago I flew on Echo India Delta Charlie Juliet.
Right, okay. It's probably not as big a deal as I mean, the thing, but surely that's what these inspections were all about. I mean, I don't understand why, as long as they're doing something about it, why
these pickle forks, Matt, are quite important. They're what hold the wings to the
No,
aircraft.
I get that, but I'm just saying...
they've got the best name ever.
Well, they have, pickle fork. I'm rather partial to a little pickle.
I like pickled onions, but don't like my fork pickled.
Well, indeed.
It's the kind of thing I want to learn more about, but at the same time don't want to Google.
Right. Yes.
Are you a big Ryanair fan, Will?
No.
Okay.
The only thing that Ryanair is ever any good for is if you can do everything in a very small carry-on, and you can run onto the plane and run off of it at the other end, and you can put headphones in, and you don't have to pay any attention to the other passengers because there's a certain stag and hen do going to Benidorm.
Okay, yes.
You only have to look at the flights, the places they fly out of and into. But yeah, not my favourite airline.
No.
It's, in relation to the 737, it's kind of interesting when you look at the age of the aircraft and the type. Is it like the 737-800 that's mainly affected? So most of them are around the 30,000 cycle mark, which is an indicator that on a worldwide scale, there's probably more of these issues about to raise their head. So from a social point of view, from a passenger point of view, I don't think it's really something you need to think about. I think airlines have a vested interest in making sure that their aircraft are serviced well, and I think it's actually quite transparent that they're telling us that these issues are going on. So particularly with what is going on with the 737 MAX, it's a completely different aircraft. Obviously, it still has a component which is similar. But I think it's, as I said, it's just a point in time in any aircraft types where issues start to come up, like with a car with a timing chain or a timing belt, something like that. But as long as the airlines are upfront with what's going on, and maintain good maintenance schedules, I think it's a non-issue.
Well, of course, in fairness to Ryanair, of course, one of the things that they're I mean, we've had this conversation before, haven't we? Where essentially, if you were ever in a scenario where any budget airline essentially equated low cost equals low safety, then essentially that model is dead. So I think, in fairness to Ryanair, I have no doubt that they are more likely than anyone else to make sure that this is dealt with appropriately. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah.
As much as we criticise them, they do a fantastic job in getting people in and out of crazy places, and for whatever their structure is. Business-wise, it works, and it's a good thing.
And of course, in fact, actually, myself and Will very recently, because I think your last Ryanair flight was probably going out to go. It was at Oria, where we went out to Phil's wedding, wasn't it? So that was probably the last time you were on a Ryanair flight, wasn't it?
It was, in fact, and they're not a bad airline.
No.
It's just it's. There is a definite place for these low-cost airlines, and they have the bigger problem because a little bit of news tends to be gets blown out of proportion, and it's all over Facebook. And 90% of the people that fly with them love Facebook like it's going out of fashion.
Absolutely, yeah.
So a little bit of bad press gets them a lot of issues.
And essentially, I don't see this article, and I'm a bit disappointed because this one's been written by Simon Calder, who, Nev, I'm sure you'll agree with me, I normally rate actually as very much one of the good guys, if you like, when it comes to travel reporting. I do feel like, I don't know, what do you think, Nev? Is this a bit of a non-story as far as you're concerned?
I think it is, really, because, as you've said, that's why these inspections take place. And, it doesn't matter whether it's aircraft, cars, ships, that it's there for safety reasons. And if it's picked up during a
routine inspection,
then that's a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, Lane Street in the chat room says that the original Pickle Fork discovery was on passenger versions being converted to freighters in China.
Oh, okay.
So there we go. Heard it here first.
Well, yeah,
nice one.
Yeah.
So moving on to the next story, then, Nev. BA have obviously got a few quid in the bank to spend on stuff.
Well, they did have until they've just spent it all. This is on the Forbes.com website, and it says that British Airways owner IAG buys Air Europa for €1 billion. International Airlines Group, otherwise known as IAG, have acquired yet another European airline in a deal reported to be worth €1 billion. The owner of British Airways and Iberia has now bought its third Spanish airline after acquiring Vueling in November 2012. This means that IAG will now operate a staggering 80% of seats sold domestically in Spain, with the ambitions of the Air Europa transaction to solidify Madrid as an IAG hub, along with London Heathrow for British Airways. The airline group has now expanded to 7 brands after also recently acquiring low-cost carrier Level and Aer Lingus in Ireland. Willie Walsh, who's the CEO of the airline group, has certainly been known for shrewd deals over the last few years, both through acquisitions, disposals, and even aircraft purchases. British Airways announced earlier this year that it would acquire up to 200 737 MAX aircraft after the struggling jet was grounded globally, largely seen as a positive press for Boeing, who had been embattled with consistently negative headlines over the plane. It's widely expected that IAG got a huge discount on the large aircraft purchase. It also stirred up Airbus, who have long provided BA's short-haul fleet, yet didn't get a chance to bid on the order, pointing to the fact that the cost per plane of the 737 MAX order would have been well below list prices. The Air Europa transaction is a little different to previous IAG acquisitions. Rather than gaining an expanded foothold in new markets, the transaction is largely about consolidating one of IAG's key markets, their Madrid hub, and the lucrative South American routes. When Forbes spoke to IAG earlier today, they were told that this transaction will be funded through external debt. A spokesman continued to state that this deal is about Spain and making Madrid a more competitive European hub. Asked whether Air Europa would compete with Iberia's Latin American routes, IG responded that there would be close commercial coordination to increase connectivity. Initially, the Air Europa brand will be kept separate, and although passengers will be able to claim Avios frequent flyer miles through IAG, it remains to be seen whether passengers will suffer in terms of future price competition with such a dominant position in the Spanish market. And this is what happens sometimes, isn't it? You get a very dominant position and they can charge what they like for the fares. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Definitely. It's
Air Europa will? No?
No, I don't think I ever have had the pleasure of Air Europa.
Right. On the subject of pleasure, and I'm a little bit nervous, obviously, Armando, who I think is taking the next story, a little bit nervous that we're going to slip into the worlds of sort of scat airlines again.
Don't start that. Sierra Hotel India Tango again.
I was a bit nervous then because Nev was about to take a gulp of water from his tankard when he said
Actually,
that.
the next story for you, Armando, is fairly interesting because it concerns, well, not really safety issues, but I think cosmetic issues.
Well, yes, exactly.
Yeah. This was an interesting one. It's from travelandleisure.com, and SpiceJet, a domestic airline in India, is apologizing to customers after a passenger snapped and tweeted a photo of a cracked window seemingly fixed with clear packing tape.
What? Loving that.
The passenger sat down in his window seat on a flight from Mumbai to Delhi this week and saw the window was cracked and covered with sellotape. Then he tweeted at the airline asking, "Isn't this a major safety concern? Is anyone listening?" The airline responded to the tweet, writing, "Hello, at SpiceJet, safety is our utmost concern, and at no point does the airline compromise on the same. We shall surely convey this to the concerned head for necessary action. The inconvenience caused is regretted." Passive voice grammar. Let's see. The passenger followed up with the observation that if there is sellotape pasted, it means someone has seen it and is aware of the situation.
Well, that is true. Yes,
it is true, right?
Yeah.
SpiceJet did reply back, once again assuring customers that though it looks jarring, the plane was never in danger. The purpose of the inner pane is to protect the window from scratches. The inner pane doesn't carry structural pressurization loads. Please be assured that at no point in time was safety compromised. Adding that the window was repaired the same day. If, by a very slim chance, the plane's window had cracked midair, things would have gone south very quickly for passengers. No kidding. Yeah. The Independent explained that above 10,000 feet, the plane would depressurize and there would be an immediate drop in oxygen. I think for all of us listening to the show, or we probably know that it would be a significant emotional event if the window cracked. But so I can't tell from the picture if it is the inner pane or the outer pane. I can't imagine that any aircraft engineer would put tape on the outer pane. So I tend to agree with the airline statement.
I mean, speaking as a ridiculously nervous passenger, I mean, obviously, I'm famous for being a nervous passenger. I have to say, I don't think that would fill me with the greatest of confidence.
No, I think that I'd probably want to change flights.
Yeah, absolutely,
or at least change seats.
This is where, say, Armando. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Nev, I'm going to ask Nev this question because obviously you've done a lot of flying as well. I mean, if you saw a crack in a window like that, now, admittedly, you're perhaps more experienced than the rest of us because you might know enough to know that actually if it's only the inner pane, it doesn't really matter. It's only the outer one that is structural. But if you got, say you rocked up at London City and you were then going to get on a 320 or something like that to go off to, I don't know, wherever you fly off to, how would you feel about seeing that?
Well, if we're going off on an A320 from London City, we're going by road.
Oh, okay.
Runways.
All right. Okay.
Or by water, should I say, because of where it is. Yes. But that's a moot point.
Right. Okay.
That's also a blooper.
Honestly, it wouldn't bother me that much. In fact, it wouldn't bother me at all, really, because if I could see that it was an inside pane, it's not really a problem for me at all, honestly.
Never doesn't really happen in 1A, does it?
Well, no.
Never happens.
Well, if it does, you certainly wouldn't see it.
It would be a higher caliber of tape.
Of course, absolutely. Yeah, it'd be gaffer tape
Masking
at least.
tape.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you remember earlier this year we did a story how somebody was doing research as to replacing the aircraft windows with television screens.
Oh yes.
So could be kind of the same thing, right?
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
you
no,
sit
that's
at your
true.
seat and your television screen is broken where the window should be.
That would be scary.
Yeah.
It would. Yes.
No, it's a complete. I've had windshield cracks in the front end, and even so, that there's either 7 or 9 panes. There's layers of glass up there, and it usually is one of the heating elements has failed, and just the temperature differences between 25,000 or 30,000 and wherever you're landing, and I know in my head that window is going to be fine, but when you're sitting there watching it crack and the crack gets wider and wider and wider and longer, like I had this happen on one of the Air Force airplanes, and I still sort of put my shades on and lowered my seat a little bit. Right. And I was looking at the guy in the left seat, and I'm like, I know it's probably going to be fine. It's going to be fine, right? It's going to be fine. Tell me it's going to be fine. So we just went down to a, below 10,000 feet and depressurized the airplane. And it was a complete non-issue. But even when it's going to be fine, sometimes you just look at it and you're like, meh. Yeah.
I think I remember seeing on YouTube, probably would be 3 or 4 years ago, there was a little clip about one of those panes of glass with those heating elements failing, and it basically see like an electrical charge moving through the glass as it fractures.
Oh,
it is, because it's all charged, and you got it's pretty crazy, and like I said, you know it's going to be fine, but it's still pretty crazy to watch it crack. So
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be thrilled. Certainly, I certainly wouldn't be thrilled to see that. Anyway, we should move on before I make another gaffe.
Yeah, God, the blooper reel's going to be stacked this year. So the next story is on MSN.com, and you might have heard about this one this week.
This is a bit of a whoops moment.
Bit of a whoops moment.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Now, hang on, it was a 7500. Is that correct? Squawk code.
It was, yeah.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah. Which is one of the worst ones to kind
Yeah.
Actually, funnily enough, before we start, one of the the very important things that I was always taught because I think 2 of the aircraft at the flight school where I learnt to fly had actual transponders in, and my instructor would always say, just be careful when you're obviously turning or entering in that code.
Right. Okay.
But anyway, this one is, the headline is Airline Apologises After False Hijack Alarm Causes Dozens of Flight Delays. So a European airline apologised this week after a hijacking protocol was triggered, but turned out to be a false alarm.
Thank goodness for that.
Pilots on an Air Europa flight, obviously excited after having IAG by them, a Spanish-based airline accidentally enlisted their hijacking notice as the flight was getting ready to take off from Amsterdam Schiphol Airport and head to Madrid, according to Bloomberg. As a result, the flight was delayed for more than 3 hours. Air Europa confirmed the alarm was accidentally triggered Wednesday, apologising and reassuring everyone was safe. According to Bloomberg, the Dutch newspaper De Telegraaf reported that a pilot noticed the alarm button was accidentally pressed while showing an intern the transponder codes on the Airbus A330-200.
Oops.
Officials then determined there was no hijacking after boarding the aircraft, Flight 1094.
Oh, wow.
The false alarm in the flight Amsterdam-Madrid this afternoon was activated by mistake. They said that warning triggers protocols on hijackings at the airport. Air Europa tweeted on Wednesday. Nothing happened. All the passengers were safe and sound, waiting to fly soon. They apologised. Around 7:50 local time on Wednesday, Schiphol Airport first shared on social media that the Royal Netherlands something or other, long word there, was investigating the situation on board an aircraft. Just under an hour later, the airport confirmed on Twitter that everyone was safely on board or off board, and the investigation was ongoing. This is not the first time a pilot has accidentally sent out a hijacking alert. In February 2018, pilots on a Lufthansa flight accidentally triggered a hijack alert as the plane was landing in Frankfurt because of a technical problem in the cockpit. And in June 2018, the JetBlue pilots about to take off from New York's Kennedy Airport did the same after a radio glitch caused the aircraft to send out a false alert. Ah, dear, silly. Armando, I'm guessing you've never typed in 77, 7700 or 7750.
Yeah, no, just like you, I think that's pretty early on in your flight training. They tell you, hey, when you're putting in your transponder codes, make sure you don't touch any, or you don't go by any of these 3 different combinations. And yeah, just like we do as aviation enthusiasts, where you can set up an alert on FlightAware or ADSB Exchange or any of those things where something pops up with either an emergency code or a no radio code or worse, then there are protocols that go into place, and you don't know if it's real, if it's not real, but the transport authorities will take every one of those signals as if it is a real signal. So I can only imagine that an airliner going into Amsterdam, squawking that, or even just sitting on the ground would raise some alarms and probably cause some delays as the authorities respond to it. And bad form on the part of that training captain or whoever it was.
I mean, obviously, I presume this has, sort of long-reaching implications, something like this. I mean, because even if it was immediately cancelled, I mean, presumably they have to assume
alarm bells everywhere.
That even if it had been cancelled, that it was real until somebody's physically investigated the aircraft. I mean, I assume, because it could be a hijacker that's cancelling it, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, and Tony S asks a good question in the chat room: is the squawk codes supposed to be an industry secret? No, they're not. You can Google it. It's in all of your training manuals. It's printed on kneeboards. It's not a secret by any means, but it's hard to implement a technique worldwide, and to do so, you're not going to be able to keep it secret like that, but at least it helps, right? So there are other squawk codes. So 7600, for example, is I don't have radios. Well, that's not supposed to be a secret by any means, and it just means, hey, I'm able to tell the air traffic control agency that I have no radios, and if you're on instrument, flight plan, then there are certain procedures that you can basically go where they're expecting you to go at the times that they're expecting you to be there, even without a radio. And by seeing that squawk code, they can tell that, okay, well, he may be able to listen to me, but he can't speak or something like that. I had a situation in my Lance Air where the radio was terrible. Well, the radio was fine, but the antenna was terrible. And often I would be up at 13,000, 14,000 feet, and ATC couldn't hear me, but I could hear them. So they would just sort of broadcast in the blind to me and then tell me, hey, if you can hear us, acknowledge me through the transponder by hitting your ident button, which makes me flash on their screen. So if he gives me an instruction and he sees my transponder code flash on his screen, well, at least he knows that I heard him.
Hear him, yeah.
Yeah. So it's more than just the 3 codes. You can use transponders for all kinds of different things. And the guys over at Opposing Bases could probably do a whole episode on this. But the transponder is it's a very useful tool. But
so Nev, obviously, I mean, you've been to Schiphol quite a lot, actually, haven't you? And now this is a very, very busy airport, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very, very hectic because it's got so many runways. So if something does kick off like this, it's obviously a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think that, it was handled pretty well in the end. I think they managed to calm everybody down, and it was dealt with pretty well. But yeah, these things can happen. Of course, if it's going to happen at a major international airport,
of course,
that's a very big deal, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, if it happened at Norwich, I don't think anybody would even notice. I mean, it's just...
The plane spotters would love it.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, because it means there's a plane there.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. That's a rare thing. So, moving swiftly on to the next story. And Matt, this one for you. I think this is quite a nice story.
Yes, absolutely. So we're sticking with low cost, obviously, because I seem to only get low cost stories. This is on a website, another one that we've never heard of before, Carlos. You are excelling yourself this week.
I know.
Webwire.com, and the headline is EasyJet hosts first brownie meeting on a plane to help inspire the next generation of women pilots, which is really cool.
That's good.
So brownies from Bedfordshire are the first ever girl guiding group to hold their meeting on a plane. EasyJet, Europe's leading airline, and Girl Guiding, the leading charity for girls and young women in the UK, have celebrated hosting the first ever brownie meeting on a plane. So Third Potton Brownies from Bedfordshire joined an all-female team of 14 EasyJet pilots at the airline's headquarters at London Luton Airport. The 22 girls, aged between 7 and 10, were treated to a tour of an Airbus A320neo aircraft, followed the pilots as they demonstrated their pre-flight checks of the plane, and even got a view from the pilot's seat as the controls in the flight deck. The girls were then quizzed the pilots on what life is really like as a captain and a first officer. EasyJet and Girl Guiding joined forces in 2018 with the airline sponsoring the aviation badge for brownies. The badge launched last year as part of Girl Guiding's biggest ever overhaul of badges and activities to equip girls with skills and knowledge that they can use now and in the future. So far, over 18,000 girls have completed the aviation badge or are working towards it. To earn the badge, girls are challenged to think of 40 things that fly and put their engineering skills to the test, creating their own aircraft experiments with different building materials, structures and launch techniques. At the end of their visit, brownies Alice, Elifia and Zara were presented with their aviation badges on board. Earlier this year, Girl Guiding launched Future Girl in its manifesto for girl-led change. Future Girl sets out the future girls want in 5 topics based on views of 76,000 girls and young women aged between 4 and 25 as part of the Barrier Breakers topic. So it's
really good. It's so
that's
good.
a nice thing. Well done, like EasyJet, to do that. I mean, I part of me is a bit disappointed they didn't get a flight. It would have been perhaps quite nice if, I suppose, you'd need passports and parents and goodness knows what else.
Obviously, Will, you're a parent.
I am.
Are you kind of?
I still find that
making
concept
sure
terrifying.
Are you making sure you're?
It's worrying.
Yeah, absolutely.
They allowed me to reproduce.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Are you going to try and push the the aviation thing onto the kids?
I mean, both of them. We go on holiday once a year. They love it. The first year I took them on my own, I thought it was going to be a massive issue. Too small. They were 3 and 4 or something like that the first time, so that was quite daunting. But they love it. They're happy.
Good.
They know their way around Schiphol Airport better than I do now.
Oh wow,
fantastic!
Okay.
They know where McDonald's and the playground is,
and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
And I know where the business lounge is, and I don't care about anything else other than that. I was going to leave them at the playground and then go across to the business lounge.
It's a man after Nev's heart. Brilliant. Straight to the business lounge.
Yeah. That's what you've got to do.
Yeah.
It's when they go after your credit card is when you've got to worry.
It's only a matter of time. Yes.
No, they already know this one.
Right. Okay.
They know that Daddy's plastic money spends better than his.
Moving on before we get into more trouble.
So Nev, the next story is a bit of a wow story for you.
Yeah, we haven't heard about WOW Air for a while, have we? And that's, well, for obvious reasons, because it ceased operations previously. And this is on the travelandleisure.com website. And it says that only a few months after budget Icelandic airline WOW Air ceased operations, a former executive from the company is now starting his own. Anar Mar Magnusson, ex-vice president of operations for WOW Air, is now launching a brand new airline called Play, according to the Points Guy. Operations are scheduled to begin as early as next year, and the company already has 2 Airbus A321 aircraft, which will fly between the new company's hub at Keflavik Airport in Reykjavik, Iceland, to 6 destinations in Europe. Flights to North America are planned to begin in late 2020. According to the Play website, the airline, much like the former WOW Air, will be a low-cost carrier. Tickets will go on sale later in November for flights beginning in 2020. It's unclear whether the new airline will also feature a more a la carte style of pricing and perks that WOW Air offered. The airline intends to eventually expand its fleet to 10 aircraft within 3 years. And to entice travellers, the company will be giving out 1,000 free tickets to some of its first passengers once bookings go live. The site has a link to sign up for updates, including when sales begin, and for a chance to win a free ticket. And if any flight attendants in Iceland are looking, the new carrier is also currently hiring. WOW Air was a go-to for travellers looking for a bare bones flight to Iceland and other countries in Europe, but after its collapse in March 2019, leaving hundreds of passengers and even some of its planes stranded, it seemed unlikely that the airline would make a comeback. But recently, the defunct airline announced that it will indeed continue operations in the future, but only as cargo flights. Goes on a bit, but it's quite interesting to see that it's possible to resurrect a previous model.
Be interesting to see if this actually does work.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe the vice president maybe had a slightly different view than the president in relation to the direction, and maybe this is a way of them to be able to move forward, maybe as a slightly rebadged version of a WOW, but just under a different name?
Could be. And of course, obviously where they're based, it's nicely, well, not quite halfway, is it? But it's, nicely based in Reykjavik between the US and European cities. So it can serve both from there. And I hope it's successful, because I think they do need another airline to compete with Iceland Air. So.
Oh, yeah.
Agreed. Yep.
Micah puts in the chat room that if the old WOW Air was going to do things differently and turn things upside down, they should have named themselves Mum.
Oh, Micah. Oh,
gotta leave it to Micah.
More importantly, Carlos, shame on you for reading that out, because that did just.
It's Micah. You have to read.
I could have just sat in the chat room and merrily amused everyone, but no. We're going to have to get a soundboard where we can do.
We should do. We should do.
Absolutely.
Right. So the next story is on FoxNews.com, and the headline is Chinese airline bans pilot from flying for life.
You're not nicking.
Armando.
Story.
Armando. Sorry. That's why I'm
How rude!
I know. I'm always mesmerized by the accent, so I was just hanging on his every word.
Bless. Then, in that case, my dear man, you need to get out more.
So a Chinese pilot has been banned from flying for life after he allowed a passenger into the cockpit, violating air safety regulations. The Air Gillen pilot, whose name was not shared, took a photo showing a female passenger posing in the cockpit next to cups that had been laid out. The airline did not confirm whether the photo was taken during the flight, but analysts reportedly suggest that it was. Judging by the blurred out flight instruments, I would say somebody didn't want to show that this aircraft was in flight. It was taken on January 4th on a flight from Guilin to Yangzhou, although it did not go viral until this week. The airline reportedly was not aware of the photo until screenshots were shared widely on popular Chinese social media site Weibo over the weekend. The woman, who is also not named, is rumored to be a flight attendant in training at a university. It is not known why the pilot let the woman into the cockpit, but his actions violated regulations by allowing irrelevant personnel into the secure area.
I've got a rough idea, but anyway.
Yeah, me too.
Wow.
Let's see. Yeah, passenger safety. I feel like this is just a canned statement from any airline, but passenger safety is always our responsibility. We take a zero tolerance approach to any inappropriate and unprofessional behavior that might risk aviation safety.
It's essentially exactly the same statement from the SpiceJet story earlier, isn't it? It was just no different to the It's I don't know. I mean, if they're they're saying that it's your cabin crew in training and all that kind of thing. That's fair enough, but I mean the rules are there for a reason, aren't they? I mean, and it's certainly from copies of that photograph I'd found. That weren't in this particular news article that were on Twitter and things like that. It certainly looked to me like the aircraft was in flight and wasn't on the ground.
Do you remember the days, Will, when you were allowed into the flight deck?
Yeah.
Like pre 9/11?
Yeah, back in the day. That was even now. I mean, you've got on a lot of the planes, they have
special gates that come down so the pilots can come out to go for a wee and all sorts. But I mean, even looking at the picture here, you can see that if it was that dark outside, it's not going to be sitting on a runway.
No, because it would be there'd be lights or there'd be an orange glow behind.
Yeah,
or
they're
like
normally
that.
lit up like Blackpool illumination, aren't they? So
absolutely, it's a very suspicious photograph. Well, I mean, I don't know. Perhaps I'm being a little bit unkind, but I'm kind of. I feel more comfortable that this plan of action has been taken. I'm sorry, I mean, if you are going to do something like that, then surely the first thing you ensure is that there's some kind of embargo to ensure that that photograph is only ever your personal property and not shared online or anything like that. If I mean, it's just a bit of a non-brainer.
Well, yeah, because at the end of the day,
can you ever really guarantee that?
No, I suppose not. And perhaps this particular individual had been told exactly that. I don't know, but
I'm sure she was told on January 4th.
Well, yes.
Do you think she could have uploaded a photo accidentally? You know how sometimes with phones and how they use them so quickly these days, it was an oopsie daisy moment.
That's got me into a whole heap of trouble many a time. That has, But anyway.
So moving on to the next story. This one is on airlineratings.com. And we've all heard about passengers moaning about particular aircraft, saying that they think they're rubbish, like Matt dislikes the 757.
Yeah, well, that's not an airline, it's a specific aircraft.
I know,
isn't it?
but this story is about an airline CEO that thinks that the particular aircraft she has in their fleet is rubbish. So the headline on this story then, Air France CEO slams obsolete problem-prone A380. So Air France has already announced it will phase out its 10 A380s by 2022. Rarely has an airline been as unhappy with the Airbus giant as the French, who are in general talking about every Airbus aircraft. CEO Anne Rigail talked exclusively with Airline Ratings during the recent inaugural A350 flight from Paris to Toronto. And she says that she would not say that it was a burden from the beginning. I don't know if anyone would have been able to forecast it at the time, but the A350 and the Dreamliner just made the A380 totally obsolete and too expensive and too big. Operationally, it has always been a very difficult aircraft. You need specific ramp equipment, you need to rebuild runways, taxiways, and you need to have special boarding ramps. I say this because, as she says in here, she was working at Charles de Gaulle Hub when the A380 arrived. Operationally, it has always been problematic because you even need special training for everyone on the ramp. She says here that I've never seen this before, and in comparison it's so easy to train people to handle an A350, but when the A380 came to Air France in 2009, it replaced two aircraft types, so on the cost side it wasn't so bad. Since the efficiency of the A350 and the 787 is the same but with less capacity and more flexibility, you can put them on any route, so of course the A380 is no longer useful. And we have all kinds of problems with it, she says, related to the structure of the engines, and not only now with the aircraft getting older, it has always been difficult with the A380. So it's safe to say she's not very impressed with the whole A380 thing.
I mean, it seems to be a common complaint. Certainly, I mean, it's several of us know cabin crew who work on the A380, and none of them have nice things to say about the galley. And
yes, they don't do that.
I
heard that. Yes.
Yeah, they really don't. They don't have nice things to say about the galley. I mean, you've been on. Well, in fact, very recently you were with Emirates, wasn't it? It was the 777 and the A380. Now, what was your experience like? Bearing in mind they were more or less not quite back to back, but they were
with a 4-hour gap.
So
it was.
Yeah,
it was
as close as it gets. I mean, between the two? I mean, how do they compare?
I like the bar.
Right, there's a shock.
I mean, I'm a big fan of the bar. The bar was good fun. No, I mean,
how long have I known you?
Long enough.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a shock.
I don't mind the A380. I wasn't overly impressed with it, but that was more because I don't like Emirates interior design options.
Okay, we'll come back to that later on. Now, Matt, you had your hand up there. What did you fly out on?
I flew out on the aircraft that actually flew from New York to Sydney non-stop. So, Yeah, the latest 787-900 in the Qantas fleet, and
cool.
I was down the back end of the plane speaking with the purser and a lot of the flight attendants, and Qantas fly the A380, as everybody's aware, and they have their worldwide system or worldwide aircraft as a separate entity to their domestic and other aircraft. So basically what they said to me is that they have to be trained up on the A380, have to be trained up on the 787, and obviously they don't fly the Airbus. But what they were saying to me is that in terms of usability of the galleys, for example, just as a minute point, that it's not as good as the 787. Furthermore, in terms of the training and costs, you need twice as many people on board to serve the passengers as what you need on the 787 and even the A350. So, realistically, it's just a simple case of it's a great aircraft. If you look at what it took to build an A380, and it'll go down in history as an amazing aircraft, but unfortunately, it's just time and place. And they talk about engines. Qantas has had issues with the engines blowing up, and a few other companies as well. So it's just unfortunately just poor timing, and particularly moving forward, the commonality element in the twin aisle setup and basic number of seat component is going to be key to streamlining airlines' business models moving forward. So it's definitely come and had its day, and unfortunately for Airbus, the strike from the national carrier is almost a death knell strike.
Yeah. Well, in fact, actually, sort of going back to the story here, in fact, actually, Al has sort of hinted exactly that. He says in the chat room, he says, well, one must ask the ultimate question, why on earth did they buy them? Which is a good point. It's one of those.
I think there's going to be a lot of very posh
things
restaurants around the world soon.
Yeah, and also again, Tony S is saying not very patriotic from Air France. It's Micah has a good point though. He says the A380 was designed for a time before long distance direct service like we have now with the 787 and the A350. It was designed with the hub and spoke in mind, and the hub and spoke is not used as much as it once was.
That's exactly right. I mean, you look at the time when the concept of the double-decker airliner. I mean, the 747 originally was designed as a double-decker back in the 60s, but the MD-12 I think was an example of that, which was supposed to have been launched in 1992, and then Boeing further along when they was trying to make its mind up whether or not it was going to do that. It was basically, I think everyone wanted to jump on board the new concept to say, hey, look, we've got the new airline, the latest element in world travel, and come fly with us. So everyone bought up big because they wanted to be. It was basically like back in the day of the 707. If you didn't have a 707, who were you as an airline?
Well, yeah, true.
So it's we can fly, and I agree with Michael with his element there about the hub and spoke. These are new aircrafts, particularly with their flight performance ratios in getting off the ground and getting into small places, and they're just making travel for the traveling public much better and easier, because you can get into these places and they don't have the travel time and the transit time that they once had.
Indeed.
That's the way of the future.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So it's...
So moving on.
Yes,
moving on to the next story, because we've run out of time.
Yeah,
so moving on to the next story. Matt, are you feline okay?
Oh, see what you did there.
Oh, boy. Carlos.
Sorry.
Everyone go and have a lie down. Right, so this is the RT.com website. And any specific reason this story was chosen for me?
I don't know.
Seeing as you're the cat lover. Anyway, good. Too fat to fly. Is that directed at me? Where are we going with this? Cat owner tricks airline with feline body double after 10-kilogram pet denied boarding. So a Russian cat owner was forced to resort to spy movie style tricks when his beloved and well-fed pet was deemed too fat to go on board a plane. The op involved a network of conspirators, social media, and an actual cat double. So Mr. Galen detailed the drama and sneaky but successful tactics in a Facebook post when he and Victor, that's the cat, were safe and soundly on board. The inseparable human-feline duo was set to fly from Riga to Vladivostok with a stopover in Moscow. The first leg of the trip was fairly uneventful, save for a bit of plane sickness on Victor's part, which left Galen covering his ears and wiping drool from the pet's face during the day. Oh, that's lovely. It was at Moscow airport where the things started to look a little bit bleak. However, Galen was unlucky enough to encounter the most responsible employee at the airport, who insisted on weighing and checking his baggage with a tape measure and, of course, weighing Victor in the carrier bag. The cat, which weighs 10 kilos, turned out to be 2 kilos overweight.
Cat.
That is a big cat. That's actually bigger than Alfie. Because Alfie is
Are you sure the cat wasn't stuffed with cocaine?
Well, who knows? Absolutely, anything's possible. Perhaps that's why they were suspicious. Yeah, perhaps that's why they were suspicious. Anyway, Galen was informed that he would not be permitted in the cabin unless the cat is stowed in the baggage compartment. News unlikely to be received well by any worried pet owner. Despite feeble attempts to explain that the scaredy cat could not survive 8 hours in the luggage compartment, and even a threat that his terrible end would be the stuff of nightmares for the rest of your life, airport staff just would not budge. Unwilling to subject Victor to such horror, Galen returned his ticket, skipped his flight, and set the cunning plan in motion. He used his air miles to book a business class flight for the next day, and with the help of friends, he managed to find a suitable cat double to pose as a more svelte-looking Victor, ironically, well, in this case, called Phoebe. Back in the airport the next day, Phoebe was presented to the airport staff and passed the weight test with flying colours before being quickly swapped with Victor, and the two were on their way. Judging by the comments on Galen's Facebook post, most people are certainly on his side and not averse to a little rule breaking when a beloved four-legged companion is involved.
Now, my big question on this one is why on earth are you taking a cat on a plane? I can kind of understand dogs.
Yeah,
I think it's weird, but I can kind of understand.
Sort of, I mean, it's not. It's certainly. I don't know. Perhaps Victor is an
emotional
support animal.
Well, at that size, it needs a lot of support.
Well, there is that. Absolutely, quite heavy. Now,
there's always a perfect reason.
Oh.
You're talking absolute kibble.
Oh, don't you start.
From both sides of the Atlantic.
Anyway, now, Carlos, obviously, this
Nev's the king of puns. He should be ripping these out.
This is true.
Left, right, and centre.
He's being quite... Yeah, he's very mean.
Nev, anything? Nev?
No, I can't think of anything off the top of my head at all.
Right.
Oh, no!
Yes!
Oh, this is marvellous. Anyway, now, I'll be honest with you. Victor looks very similar to a poppy cat, I know.
He does look very similar to Poppy.
In fact, actually, now that I'm not reading the story, let's pop a couple of pictures up on
He's incredibly cute.
Very adorable. This is the animal, the emotional support character. In question. I assume the champagne wasn't for Victor. Perhaps that was.
Well,
you know. Now, very good. Now, can you imagine putting Poppycat on a plane?
Well, she sits in the van with me to go to the vets.
Yeah, but not in a carrier.
No, she sits on the seat.
But it's not about whether she'd sit on the plane. It's more, why on earth would you take a cat on a plane?
I mean, if you were moving house or something like that, I could kind of get that, But you know what? Yeah,
Have you seen the list of things that people have taken on aircraft in the US?
I mean,
we're not talking
I
about
can
just
barely
dogs and
take
cats
on
here.
a blooming bottle of water.
Good point. Yeah,
but you can take a whole cat.
Yeah, absolutely. This is. I mean, perhaps the rules are different in Russia. I don't know.
No.
Well, I think everything's different in Russia.
Well, there is that, indeed. And on that bombshell, we'll move on to the next story. So, Nev, if you're ready.
Yeah, it's on the yourmoney.com website. And interestingly enough, this is about the Thomas Cook airport slots. They've been sold to EasyJet and to Jet2. The failed holiday company's slots at Gatwick and Bristol have been sold to EasyJet, and slots at Birmingham, London Stansted and Manchester have been sold to Jet2. The £36 million deal means that EasyJet will be able to operate more services from Gatwick and Bristol airports. The official receiver and special managers from KPMG UK have confirmed that airport slots at London Gatwick and Bristol Airport belonging to Thomas Cook have been sold and transferred to EasyJet for £36 million. EasyJet confirmed that it had bought 20 slot pairs at Gatwick Airport, which are 12 summer slot pairs and 8 winter slot pairs, and 7 slot pairs at Bristol Airport, which consists of 6 summer slot pairs and 1 winter slot pair. It means that the budget airline will be able to operate more services out of both airports during peak summer and winter seasons. EasyJet said in a statement, contractual terms have concluded and the slots have been awarded to us, adding that the airline would provide further details in the airline's full year results announcement on the 19th of November. The insolvency service says that the outcome has been facilitated by the collaborative approach of Thomas Cook's commercial partners at UK airports and the support of both internal and external slot coordinators. In addition to this, Jet2.com has acquired Thomas Cook's UK slots at Manchester, Birmingham and London Stansted airports, although the sale price for these was not disclosed. Steve Heapy, who's the CEO of Jet2.com and Jet2 Holidays, said the acquisition of these key UK airport slots will play an important role in supporting our continued growth at Birmingham, Stansted and Manchester airports. We have been adding more flights and aircraft, resulting in increased capacity at each of these bases for many years. Today's announcement is the latest demonstration of our commitment to providing holidaymakers with more choice and flexibility when it comes to flying to sun, city and ski destinations with our award-winning airline. Well, as you might know, Thomas Cook went into administration on the 23rd of September 2019, with winding up orders made against Thomas Cook Group PLC and associated companies. The court appointed the official receiver as the liquidator and KPMG to act as special managers to assist with the liquidation. It was announced last month that Hayes Travel will acquire the entire retail portfolio of 555 former Thomas Cook shops, providing re-employment opportunities for former employees of Thomas Cook's retail operations who were made redundant.
I can confirm, in fact, actually, that the Thomas Cook shop in Yarmouth did indeed reopen this week.
Did it?
As one of those. So yeah, no, I can confirm.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
Indeed.
good.
It's a good. It's still an awful story, isn't it? But I mean, obviously the slots. I mean, we knew. I think we mentioned a few weeks ago, didn't we? That we knew those slots were going to, you know, because that's right. We discovered that they were actually essentially an asset that could be sold, weren't they? So presumably the receivers will obtain that money to help pay outstanding bills and things, won't they? So. Yeah.
So the last story for the commercial news segment this week, and we haven't had one for a few weeks, so we've got a top 20 this week, and this top 20 for this week's show is, we thought, being as we've got Will on the show, this is the world's best airline cabin crew.
Easy.
So we're going to see just how this compares.
And when they say
with,
best...
Right,
I think it's not judged in the same way I judge it at all.
Yeah.
So this particular kind of top 20 focuses on the best airline cabin crew, recognising all-round performance of cabin staff for hard service, techniques, efficiency, attention to detail, and soft service characteristics, i.e. staff enthusiasm, attitude, friendliness, and hospitality.
Right.
So we've got 20 of these to go through, and at the end we're going to see just how they marry up with what your views are.
Indeed,
Will.
okay.
I'm sure you've flown on
with
quite a few
Matt
of these.
and Nev and you've done your fair bit of flying and that. I'm sure we'll have a there.
Let's have a look.
So I'm going to go for something slightly different this week. I hope you don't mind.
Okay.
In 20.
At number 20, it is Fiji Airways.
In 19.
Emirates.
18. Nev.
18. AirAsia.
Yeah. 17. Nev.
Flynas.
16. Carlos.
Lufthansa.
15, please, Will.
Bangkok Airways.
Very good. 14, please, Matt Buntingframe.
Asiana Airlines.
Very good. What number are we up to? I forgot.
13.
13, then, please, Armando.
Oh, Nev's best. British Airways.
Oh, well, at least it's in the top 20. That's the thing. Number 12, please, Carlos.
Austrian Airlines.
Number 11, please, Nev.
Philippine Airlines.
Very good. Will, number 10, please.
China Airlines.
Oh, number 9, Matt Buntingframe.
Qatar Airways.
Or however you say it, yes. Armando, number 8.
We love our Asian airlines. That's Japan Airlines.
Very good. Carlos, number 7.
Hainan Airlines.
Number 6, please, Nev.
Cathay Pacific Airways.
And number 5, please, Will.
EVA Air.
Oh, Eva Air.
Eva
yes,
Air,
yeah,
yeah.
okay, yeah. Who's next? We'll go with Matt Bunting Frame, number 4.
Thai Airways.
Number 3, please, Armando.
ANA, All Nippon Airways.
Number 2, please, Nev.
Garuda Indonesia.
And Bully's special prize.
At number 1, the best airline cabin crew in the world for 2019, Singapore Airlines.
US Airlines.
Yep.
There we go. So,
What is not even a mention?
Well, no, indeed. That's a bit unfortunate,
Will,
isn't it? Yeah.
where does this kind of sit with you then? Obviously,
Well, I don't think BA should be on there in any way, shape, or form.
Nev, please come back immediately with that.
Well, at least they're on there, which makes a nice change because
yeah, I can't see
so
Will
many,
Airlines on there.
Yeah.
so many things that they've not been on.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Are you trying to promote British business in light of Brexit?
oh, yeah, don't mention that
Oh,
word.
we
Oh,
made
no,
it.
don't set me off on that one. Yeah.
into the
Wow. Well, that's a new record, an hour and 10 minutes in, and that's the first time Brexit has
So
been
Will,
mentioned.
are there any on there that you think are in the wrong place?
yeah, I wouldn't. I've never had good experiences with British Airways at all.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
no, we're getting that.
Well, we
Moving
got
on
that.
from
Moving on.
British
Emirates are good. I would have thought they'd
Actually,
been higher.
I can say they're a lot
Yeah,
lower than
yeah,
I
I'm
thought they
surprised
would
at
be.
that.
There's a lot
Yeah,
of these ones that
great.
I've never even heard of, let alone flown with.
So Qatar, whatever you want to call them. I mean, obviously, presumably, Matt, you've had more experience perhaps with these. I mean, do you think 9 is fair?
9. Yeah, look, I'm looking at that list, and I think it's more like a Eurovision list of airlines as opposed to actual flight performance.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, part of me sort of thinking maybe because it seems to be a little bit more skewed to the what's amused you.
Captain Nick has put something in the chat room. He thinks.
Can you read it
Yes.
He thinks this top 20 is a load of, and there's a little
Mr.
emoji.
Is
like
there?
Mr. Hanky, yeah.
Is
emoji.
it right? Is it sort of a pile of steaming something or other? Yes. Okay.
Bravo Sierra.
Right, indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed, absolutely. I mean, I have to say these do look slightly sort of more skewed towards what I call the sort of
the
Middle Eastern
no,
sort
east,
of-
east. I should say east.
yeah, sort of eastern, towards the east.
eastern,
Which,
yeah.
but then they are renowned as a on the whole of being sort of quite polite and good at customer service. So perhaps
Yeah.
that shouldn't be that much of a surprise. I mean, so all right, let's go round.
How
the
does Flyness get in there? Like, who are they? Who's flown Flyness to be able to say they're in the top 20? And how many
Perhaps-
routes do they fly?
perhaps-
And it's like, come on.
I mean, perhaps some of this is to do with who has the biggest checkbook. I mean, it's slightly suspicious.
I mean,
but-
why aren't Ryanair on there?
Right. Okay. I don't know where to begin to tell you what's wrong with that. Wow. Okay. Let's go round the group then. So for you then, Will, we'll start with you. Who would be number 1 as far as you're concerned?
At the minute, it's United.
What?
Wow.
United Airlines.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. So remember a couple weeks ago we were talking about this, and there was a bad story about United, and I think it was an in-flight entertainment story, and I actually thought United was one of the better ones.
Yeah, they're
Like,
consistent.
yeah.
Good.
Right.
Food's
okay.
good. Cabin crew's
Yeah.
good. They're kind. They're courteous. They're always smiling.
Wow. Okay.
Planes are clean.
Planes are. Yeah, exactly.
The planes are
Yeah.
clean. Okay. All right then. So, I mean, Carlos, for you, I'm guessing Malta Air. Would that be your ultimate?
No, Air Malta.
Oh, Air
Thank you,
Malta.
Matt.
Oh, my
Yeah.
my apologies. Sorry.
Um,
Same thing, right?
Well, yeah, I would be biased and say Air Malta
Yeah,
because their
okay.
crew are really, really good, really well mannered and polite.
Yeah.
But I have to say, all the times that I've flown with Emirates, their cabin crew have been exceptionally
Exceptional,
pleasant.
okay.
But in Nev's defence, the last 2 times that I've flown with BA, their cabin crew have been really, really nice, and I have
Okay.
been, really quite pleasantly surprised.
So, I mean, I suspect I know the answer to this one already, Nev. But I mean, obviously, who would you put as top of the list out of all of the airlines?
Well, it is a bit difficult. I mean, there's some quite serious omissions, I think,
Go on.
in.
Fill in the
you'd
blanks.
expect Virgin Atlantic to be in there.
True.
wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um,
yeah.
I would expect to see Scandinavian in there as well.
Yeah, yeah.
They've got very good onboard service, very good cabin crew. So I still think that Singapore, I think, is still acknowledged as one of the best.
Yeah,
no question about it.
Okay. So Armando, then we'll go with you next. Who would you say should be top of the list?
Well, I think for me, what makes a difference is the length of the segment. And although I fly a lot of domestic, before I left the UK, I was crossing the Atlantic probably 8 times a year, and I got it. My nod goes to Virgin Atlantic.
Okay.
I always had really good experiences with Virgin. So.
Yeah. Okay, and then Matt, obviously, who would you put top of the list?
Yeah, I think
Jetstar.
I'm not.
Jetstar.
Jetstar. They're fantastic. I could tell you some stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's for later.
Tiger Air.
Right. Okay.
Oh, not so much. No. I haven't flown. I've flown a lot of these airlines historically, so I don't think if I tried to categorise them on historical data 15 years old, it would be fair. But recently, I would be more United and Qantas, American, those would be my main airlines I've flown. So. In terms of consistency, I would say United I think they've unfortunately on long haul have had a bad rap. Some of their flight attendants are quite old, but I think their service is very good. And I tend to judge their flight service based on how much free alcohol I get. So,
I also use a similar scheme.
Yeah, you too will, right? Yeah.
So, based on my last experience, Qantas were absolutely amazing. They looked after me beyond measure. And also American. So to answer succinctly, given my latest experiences, I have to go with Qantas.
Yes. And the cookies on the A380 are so nice.
Right, okay.
They are good.
Yeah.
Right, okay. I mean, I think it's fair to say that the chat room has essentially, fallen into filth. For want of a better word.
Family show.
There's barely a single message in there that is safe for me to read out loud. I'm not going to lie.
So that was the last story in the commercial news segment for this week, and obviously we've got our guest Will in the studio with us this evening. So Will, welcome again onto the show. Thanks for coming into the studio to join us this evening. So Will, it's safe to say that your job means that you have to travel a lot.
Well, yeah, especially as I live in the UK, but my office is in Houston, Texas.
Right,
okay.
Wow,
So
okay. That's a commute. And a half.
It's a good 10-hour flight. But I do with this new job, I spend a lot more time going back and forth to the States, to Panama, to the Bahamas. I've just come back. I got back on Tuesday from Bangladesh for 2 weeks, which actually surprisingly really, really nice place. Over the years, I've done a lot of West Africa flights, and I think with a lot of these airlines, like with Emirates, I flew 2 flights this week. The Schiphol to Dubai, the crew is a lot prettier, a lot higher class.
Right.
But then you go to the routes when you're then flying from Dubai into Bangladesh, and there is a difference in the cabin crew. There's a difference in the way they treat the planes and the passengers as well. And I think that's where you get a lot of them. I mean, Air France, I've flown a couple of times where they've been really, really nice, but then you fly into West Africa on Air France and the cabin crew just don't want to be there.
Okay.
So I think there must be some sort of tier system within the airlines as to which ones they prefer and which cabin crew get which runs.
So on class-wise, obviously you've said before we start the show, you've sampled economy in many airlines, and you're now starting to kind of utilise the whole business class, package as such with the airlines. But going back to economy class, who would you say is the leader out there in economy? For service, food, drinks, seats.
I've always liked KLM because it's nothing special. The food isn't that great, but it's consistent. The crew aren't the most friendly, but they're courteous. Everything is consistent. You get free booze. They come round. They're normally quite friendly to you. I started flying KLM more and more because if you work in oil and gas industry, you can apply for, they call it their petroleum card, which means you can use the business lounge at Schiphol and Charles de Gaulle for free. So regardless of your flying status, it was then worth having. And then over the years, I've bumped up and I'm gold working on platinum at the minute. So when you can have little bonuses like that, it makes you want to fly there. With us being, 30 minutes from Norwich Airport, and then you're straight on to Schiphol. And to me, I'd rather do that route than mess around going down to Gatwick or Heathrow, because it's the time it takes to get down there.
Indeed. And Nev, you've got a few questions for Will, haven't you?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Will, what do you think about the sort of what happens when things go wrong? You know, when you get airline delays or planes gone tech or the captain hasn't turned up, something like that. It's how the airlines deal with these sort of situations, isn't it? And how they look after the passengers. Have you had any sort of those situations?
I mean, I've been quite fortunate. I haven't had many flights cancelled. I've had
What?
Actually, famously, my first time going to Togo was on your 40th birthday.
Sore subject.
Yeah. I got a text message at 11 o'clock at night from KLM saying the flight wouldn't be able to take off from Norwich because of the fog, and they booked me in a BA flight and got me down to I think Gatwick.
Oh, that's
Heathrow.
right. Yeah, because you ended up leaving early, didn't you?
Yeah,
to make it. Yeah, of course you did. Yeah,
I thought I'd got a 6 o'clock flight out of Norwich, and I'd got a 6 o'clock flight out of Gatwick.
Yeah, nice.
So, it's quite a big difference in the time you have to get up for leaving for those. But KLM have always been good. I mean, historically, they lose my bag every third flight.
Oh, right. Oh, wow.
But
okay.
I always pick flights where they're really short connections, and I know that I'm gonna lose my bag. Yeah. And it will take them 2 days to get there.
Right.
I've always got 2 days worth of stuff in my day bag.
Right.
So it's kind of, what's the problem? They normally reimburse, if I have to go out and buy toiletries or buy spare pants or whatever, they reimburse you. Someone taught me years ago that KLM are quite keen. You can spend up to £100 and just claim it back. Wow. So I had 1 year where I don't think I bought any toiletries because and phone chargers. I've got phone chargers coming out of the yin yang.
Yeah. Now I played this little video actually. This is more what you do. It's caused a little bit of amusement in the chat room. Several inappropriate jokes about seamen and all sorts going on in the chat.
Oh yeah.
So what is it that you actually do for a job? I know you can't sort of be too specific, but what is it you do for a job?
So basically,
why are you doing all these flights essentially?
Basically, what it is, there's a lot of vessels that don't come into ports or can't come into ports because of their size. And a lot of in the same way that it's not economic for Norwich to run an A380 full of people to go to Kathmandu because there's not that many people that want to do it. They go into hubs. Our hubs are tankers offshore, and we'll go in, we'll transfer the cargo from one boat to another.
Wow.
It'll then go and it'll be traded off, or they'll go in and they'll fill it up and they'll go off
to wherever they go
wherever
next.
It's needed.
Yeah. Okay.
So we have to go in and oversee the equipment and actually how it's working.
So RAS, replenishment at sea,
that's what they call it. The Navy call it.
That's a Navy term. We call it an STS or a lightering.
Okay.
So it's a ship-to-ship transfer.
Right. Cool. Okay.
Now, when the Navy do it, they don't do it with any equipment between traditionally, and it's a bit more how they refuel jet fighters in air.
Yeah,
it's kind of like that.
Nick's your man on that. He's asking also, are you a smuggler, by the way?
I have been held in airports for.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh.
I didn't realise that you can't take currency out of Mozambique. Well, you can, but you can take the equivalent of like 10 quid.
20 quid, yeah. Okay,
and I took the equivalent of $2,000.
Oh, okay, right, yes, they were.
Purely by accident.
Right,
I would just like to say, in case
Inland Revenue are listening.
Yeah, it was a perfecly valid mistake, but I did get
told off for that, I can imagine. Yeah. So so getting back to the aviation, obviously there's now. So more recently, obviously you've had experiences with. Business class and stuff. So, I mean, you and I were having a chat about Emirates, weren't you? Because you then have an experience with them. It's I think it's sort of fair to say that it's not your favourite interior.
No, I don't know why they're still going with the. It's not even faux walnut. It's really, really faux walnut, and
Reminds me of bowling ball. You know, they make those funny coloured bowling balls.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I just, it's kind of like someone who once saw what Walnut Grain should look like,
Okay.
then described it to someone, well, Stevie Wonder, and then
Right.
Stevie Wonder described it to someone else, and then signed it off.
Okay, I mean, I'm looking at that, and all I can see in my head is my Rover that I had several years ago. I mean,
Yeah, it's kind of how we used
Yeah.
to do like luxury cars in the
yeah, with
90s and stuff like
interiors
that.
and stuff, yeah.
And I don't know why they're still doing it, but then the Middle East is still kind of sticks to that old school.
Well, I suppose if it works, because I mean some of these. So that was on that's the 777 there, isn't it?
Yeah, that was
Rather
the
than-
777.
Yeah. So it's I was going to sort of say basically perhaps it's because the 380 is sort of going to be coming out of service soon, but no, this is on the 777.
No, Nick,
isn't it?
Nev, there's a few things in the chat room, isn't there, for Will?
Yes, there's lots of questions for you there, Will. What's your Tony S asks, what's your favourite airport that you've been to?
Ooh, good question.
That is a very good question, actually. See, I know it sounds weird, but I love Schiphol. I've spent huge chunks of my life in Schiphol. I've probably I've spent 20 hours there for this trip, or 20. Yeah, coming up on 20. But
And it's quite an easy airport to navigate.
it's an
around,
easy
isn't it?
airport
It's
to
a
navigate.
good
It's
sign,
got
isn't it?
everything. It's fairly clean. If you do have to, a few times I've been transiting through it and I've been chucked out and had to come back in, and it's easy to get round. It's easy to find where things are. Everyone's kind of friendly. It's not unclean. You've got bars and restaurants and stuff that you want, and it's got a fabulous newly fitted out business lounge.
So on the flip side, worst airport.
Oh. I was lucky enough to fly into the Falklands airport 10, 11 years ago. That's pretty dire, but it is just a shed in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, a bit like Norwich then.
Oh, no, it makes Norwich look metropolitan.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Goodness.
The airport when I was in Chittagong, that's pretty horrendous, and some of the West African ones are, but it tends to be, it's not necessarily the airport's fault, it's more the country that they're in.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Captain Nick asks a very important question. Where's your favourite bar in the world?
Oh.
And now, see, this was a new one. I transited through Atlanta coming back from the Bahamas.
As you do, and listen to it.
If you want to make it better, I got sent to the Bahamas for a week and a half, and I did 2 hours work, and I had,
right, anyway.
Yeah, right, okay, moving on.
I had a beach to myself for 3 days.
Anyway, yeah.
But
Nev's going to throw up, look.
I came back through Atlanta, and I went to it was United's. It was United's lounge.
Yeah.
And that was a really nice bar. That was.
Yeah.
It's one of the nicer lounges. They were a bit stingy on their alcohol, but
Right, okay. Pilot Pip, who you can always rely on for a non-controversial question, is who do you like better, Matt or Carlos?
I'm gonna plead the fifth on this one.
Right.
Okay.
Very diplomatic. Well done.
Pip does ask a serious question.
Oh, does he? What?
Pip says, if you use them, of course, best airline app.
Oh.
Now I do use them. I do like my KLM app because it tells me how many Dutch cows I've taken around the world with me.
What?
Really?
Yeah, so KLM, I can actually, if I can find up my phone, the KLM app lets you work out how many air miles you've done on it, and it also tells you how much luggage you've taken. And one of the things that they compare it to is a Dutch cow.
Is that based on the amount of methane that you've actually produced, or what?
If it was measuring me on a plane, it's a lot more than
anyway,
that.
family show, ladies and gentlemen, family show.
But you can actually, if I go on my milestones, yeah. So it says, I've taken.
Go on then, just show that up to me.
Which one's it?
That one. There you go.
Yeah.
It's
So
got an
I-
actual picture of a cow, look.
Yeah, I've taken 2 Dutch cows around the world with me.
Oh, wow.
Well done, you.
How did you get those through security? Honestly.
I know.
Have you named them?
Oh yeah, Doris and Mabel.
Right.
Okay. Actually, we've got another question from Lisboa Nelson in the chat room in Portugal. He says, what is your non-American English favourite beer?
Ooh.
non-American or English favourite beer?
I was drinking a lot of the one in Bangladesh is Hunt, which
Okay.
looks like Foster's.
Nicely pronounced, by the way. Keep that up.
Yeah, I know. I had to really to slow my talking down.
Yeah.
I'm on my best behaviour.
Yeah, well done. Yes, no, I'm very proud of you. Thank you. Yes.
yeah, no,
So he and I were in Aria drinking quite heavily late one night. This is he has stories that if he ever tells them, I'll kill him.
I'm sure you've got worse on me.
Actually, have you flown into Portugal?
No, I've never been to Portugal at all.
Ah, okay.
I've spent a lot of time in Spain, but
Yeah.
but other than that, I like. I always drink the local beer. I don't. Wherever I go, I tend to ask whatever's local. Even if you're in the business lounge or whatever, it's always, well, I'll drink whatever
the local is. Armando, you were about to ask a question.
Yeah, actually, it's Nick's question from the chat room, and I am genuinely interested. So you travel so much. Do you travel scruffy or smart, as he asked? And have you noticed a difference if you do one or the other?
Right. I have got this now. For me, if you fly, you should always be smart. You don't have to be suited and booted, but in generations gone by,
Sort of people like smart casual, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So like a shirt and jeans or something. Yeah, sort of smart.
But you go back 20, 30 odd years, people would go out and buy a new suit to get on the plane with.
Yeah, literally.
And if you fly, if I can see your toes when you're walking on an airplane, I want to hurt you.
Right. Okay. Wow. Okay.
It's if your toes are exposed, shouldn't be wearing leggings, jogging bottoms.
Right.
If you've got those muscle tees,
Are these things perhaps that you would tend to only see on what I like to refer to as let's call them the low-cost alternative? I mean, the stag do's and things like that. I mean,
to be honest, they're not as bad as it tends to be in America.
Okay.
There's a lot of people going casual.
Is that because, though? I mean, again, also in the States, and Armando, correct me if I'm wrong, but obviously it's much more commonplace to fly domestically in the US, obviously because the country is so vast. I mean, it's
they're using airports like we would use train station or bus stations because it's easier to get around with an airline.
Is that why they perhaps got a little bit more lapse, perhaps, is because essentially it's no different to them jumping on a train or taxi or...
Yeah, I mean, you guys are probably all correct. I'm with Will on this one. I grew up Sunday best for flying, we used to dress up when I was a kid to go fly, and I've sort of tried to maintain that. Even flying regularly through the U.S., I'm disappointed in the way some people travel, and it looks like they just rolled out of bed.
Great, as we can always rely on Pilot Pip for an update of his current attire. He says, Pip says, I always wear sandals, leggings, and a tight fit muscle T-shirt. I guess me and Will won't be travel buds.
No, but I'm curious to see that.
No, you're not. Trust me.
No, you're not. Yeah, no.
But as long as Pip doesn't travel with a fanny bag.
Indeed, yes, yeah.
But I just
can't
I spend a lot of time with Americans.
No, fair enough. Okay.
Actually, especially for Captain Nick, have you ever travelled to Lagos?
Yes.
And your thoughts?
I don't mind it.
Okay.
But then I spent a lot of time in West Africa. So for me, West Africa is quite good fun. I've had some amazing nights out. I've witnessed some things that will probably get this taken off the air. I have seen some pretty horrific things, and most of them have been in Nigeria. But Lagos airport's not too bad. They've got an alright business lounge. But it's the poverty, it's the everyone rushing the cars when you're going in them. The first time I went out there, I was told I'd be given an armed escort, which involved I think he was probably about 14-year-old, sat in the seat next to me with an AK-47, and he sat with his finger on, and I swear to God, sat with his finger on the trigger
the whole time,
the whole way. And their roads are like little dirt tracks. Their version of the M25 has more potholes than my parents' driveway, and it's just. I'd feel safer. Well, I didn't have him in the end. I told him to
Yeah, go away.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Politely.
just slightly off topic here. So Tony S is saying, if I'm allowed to ask a non-aviation question, given that we're talking about security, have you ever experienced piracy on your travels around the world?
I haven't. No, I've managed ships and I've had issues with pirates on ships. The company I used to work with, we lost contact with a vessel for 7 days. It was taken. A lot of the time they take them. They just want.
They want the cargo and then.
Well, no, it's not even that. They don't know what to do. These are guys that, especially in West Africa, they don't really know how to captain a vessel or how to crew it. They don't know what to do with a huge tanker full of crude oil. So all they want is to take it over and then you to give them some money to leave it alone.
Right. Okay.
It is a big thing. It is a concern in my industry,
yeah.
but I've never
personally sort of experienced.
Touch wood.
Yeah. Yeah. Good luck next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's yeah, it's just, Captain Al saying, reminds me of my visit to Yemen. Nick is not convinced. Are you sure you meant Lagos?
Yeah,
with your choice of.
So going back to business class, Will.
Yes.
Right, over all the airlines that you've now started your flight having a business class experience in, looking at seating, amenities, in-flight entertainment, and stuff. Who is the best in your view?
So, as an all-round
package,
United, just purely because I flew them recently. Everything was 100% perfect. What I quite liked is the number of flight attendants to people in business class.
Okay.
So on the A380, there was the whole of the upper deck was business class, but there was only 7 or 8.
Well, who was that with? What airline?
That was Emirates.
Emirates, okay.
And so it didn't feel as special as an experience. With United, there wasn't 20 of us in business class. It was a little bit more one-on-one. There was a little bit more. The hostess knew what your name was. She wasn't looking at a pad or anything like that. She came up to me as soon as I sat down in the chair. Good evening, Mr. Hayes. How can I help? Would you like a glass of this? And it's just a little bit more.
Yeah. There's an awful lot of people in the chat room who cannot believe that you've listed United as your favourite. Now we did have a chat about Delta actually, didn't we? You quite like their business class product as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they're all a bit of a muchness, and they're all a bit. I don't know. I like KLM. If I have a choice to fly with any airline, it's KLM, just because I know what I'm going to get.
Yeah.
I haven't flown business class with KLM in quite some time.
Have you ever had first class experiences on any airlines?
No, and to be quite honest, I'm not really that fussed by it all.
No.
For what the difference in the tickets, I would. If it was my money, even if I won the lottery. Yeah, which I plan on doing this evening.
Of course, absolutely.
I don't think I could ever justify paying that extra money.
No.
Just
bit of business class is the way forward, isn't it? But
if your seat goes flat and seat goes up, seat goes down, seat goes up, that keeps me amused for about an hour.
Right.
just a good massage facility.
Right. Okay.
That's always good.
Okay.
And Emirates coming back into Schiphol on Monday or Tuesday, whenever it was, they kept the vodka and orange juice going quite well.
Right.
So.
Okay. Well, that's half the thing. Now, obviously, Matt. So we'll move.
Move across the pond.
Across the pond now. So now you've been doing a reasonable amount of flying as well recently. Obviously, you were saying that was it? You say it was Qatar that you came out to?
Qatar.
Qantas.
My apologies. Yes,
Queensland and Northern Territory Air Service.
Okay,
Qantas.
and there we go. Who were you? Were you in economy or were you?
Yes, given the short, how I was able to fund my ticket.
Okay.
And I was, I must say, the universe has been very kind to me and my friends.
Yeah.
And everyone around the world aided me to get here on my family business, which is quite. Meaningful. I had to take what I could get at the best price, and so to answer your question succinctly, I flew Qantas's economy product. Their new Recaro seat in economy. They also have a Recaro seat in economy plus, and they use the Thompson seats in business and first. It was economy seats. I think on the 787 are too narrow. If you had two people with broad shoulders next to each other, someone's going to come out with a sore pelvis at the other end of the trip. So I think they could probably do a little bit wider there. Apart from that, the in-flight entertainment system was really good. The pixelation in the screens these days versus even 2 years ago on like an A350 or even the United 787s has come a long way. So I wear glasses and I thought I was just looking at someone right next to me. I'm not saying that I see better with them or not, but it was definitely much clearer. The service on board, they were aware of my circumstances. So the service on board was great. There's nothing much. They couldn't put me up in business or first because the flight further forward from where I was sitting was fully booked, but they certainly made up for it in service. And I can't speak highly enough of that particular crew in that 14-hour flight. We left Melbourne. So I'll give you a quick synopsis of the timeline. I had a message from my family at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I literally left work, and so I'd missed the flights from Melbourne to Los Angeles that leave around 10:30, 9:30 in the morning and get you in at 6:30 in the morning to LA and San Fran. But in the space of 4 hours, I was able to book a ticket, do my insurance, book a car, get accommodation, post 42 fuel bladders, and I was on my way to the airport, and I caught the 10:30 flight out. Now, why I'm going on about this is because it's a point of difference. Historically, a lot of people fly out of Australia to the States in the morning, and you get there in the morning, and then that's okay if you're going to the West Coast, but then that really does suck if you're going to the East Coast, because it means that you get on the early flights out and you get into the East Coast in the evening, so you've essentially wasted a day in the air. And if for someone who's in business or needs to be there feeling fresh or fresher, it's a really bad timeline. But Qantas offering the latest service at 10:30 at night gets you into San Francisco at around 6:30 in the evening, which means you can still catch the red eye across into the East Coast or wherever it may be and arrive for a morning. But now the beauty of it is you're flying through the night constantly. So you've got 19 hours of darkness upon which you can set yourself up to arrive fresh.
Right.
And it's a I can honestly speaking from economy seat, you come out the other side in a much better condition than if you were at a 10:30 in the morning flight. So that was really good. Now, as I mentioned before, the plane I was on was the plane that did the flight from New York to Sydney in 19 hours 16 minutes, and it still had the new leather smell because only less than city asses have sat in my seat. And I do believe that, seats do need time to be worn in. So they were a little bit firm, but I'm not complaining. So yeah, it was a really, really good experience. I flew American across the States, and, they kept me topped up with 3 vodka, which was lovely. And so American were great. I can't falter them at all.
So just out of interest here, as I say, Mike is just asking in the chat room here, did you find any difference with the cabin pressure and humidity on the 787?
Very good question, Micah. I can compare. I did find, obviously, coming out the other end, in comparison to, say, a 747-400, which is a completely different era of aircraft, much like fighter jets, be like comparing a Gen 4 versus a Gen 5. It's much better. But then you compare the 787 to the A350, and there's a different proposition again.
Yeah.
I personally, and I'm normally historically a Boeing man, and I know Captain Nick will probably be spewing when I say that or coughing up his whiskey.
Yeah.
But it is the A350 is a wider cabin, and you do notice a difference. And the engines on startup, and particularly in flight in an A350, there's much better insulation. It's a lot, you're talking about for the masses, not the people up the front, people who are behind the wing where a lot of the noise is generated. And the A350 is a much better product. Going back to this ultra long haul situation, because there's a lot of questions out there as to, whom Qantas and whom other airlines are going to go with. And it's going to come back to the humidifiers on board, how to maintain that environment, and the science involved, obviously, in cabin layout for, getting people there in one piece in the best condition. So I think people the airlines might actually go for the Boeing product because they have a better patent on a better product in the humidifier. So unless something happens with Airbus, unfortunately, I think they'll go with the 787.
Yeah, I can't be at all surprised about that, really. Now, Will, I mean, obviously, all right, you're enjoying the life of luxury now, but obviously you've done your fair share of economy flying, actually. So, out of all of the airlines that you've flown with the economy product, which one have you? I mean, or are they all pretty horrendous?
I think they are all much of a muchness. Some of the seats are better. Where I've been unlucky is a lot of the routes that I've flown tends to be the older planes, the older cabin crew. It's kind of like where they do that route to service
until they stop functioning, essentially.
Yeah,
and that's just the cabin crew.
Yeah. And you do see some of them adjust. I mean, I have probably 70% of the flights I've ever done have been with KLM, or getting on for that, and they are the only thing that's good about them is they don't change in any way, shape, or form. They just
they're the same.
They are the same, and they do that. You do know what you're getting when you go onto a KLM plane.
Yeah, true.
Regardless of the size of the plane, the destination, the route, whatever. It's the staff are always a little bit weird and Dutch, but.
No. There's that. Well, yeah, that's a fair point.
I thought you liked KLM.
No, I do. My biggest downside to KLM is Oh no, I tell a lie. The other day, coming back from, or it was either coming back from Schiphol or going to Schiphol, there was a very nice young lady working on board, but that is the first one in the whole of KLM I've seen.
Okay, right.
What don't you like about BA? Just before we go anywhere. But
but
for the benefit of Nev, what don't you like about BA?
In recent years, I've only flown BA a couple of times, and every time there's been something wrong with the seat. I've had the TV screens not working. I've had the air hostesses haven't been particularly friendly, or they've been a bit grumpy. The food wasn't too sharp. I flew BA from London to Dubai, and it was just a pretty all-round.
Don't say that. They're doing it in a few weeks' time.
But it was just an all-round. It just wasn't a very nice experience. And considering you expect when you go, it's a bit like when you go on board Emirates. You expect everything to be that little bit better.
Yeah.
When I go from being a KLM flyer to a BA, you
assume that it's going to be a high
jump,
standard,
and it didn't feel like that jump, and it just wasn't.
In fact, actually, Captain Al's just saying BA business / first can be summed up as inconsistent.
I just think that it wasn't that great.
So Nev, just obviously to maybe leap to their defence a little bit. I mean, are there any things you could suggest perhaps is to help with in regards to Will's experience? I mean, is he picking the wrong aircraft to fly on, or?
Well, you often don't have a choice, do you? Well, you might do it in terms of the timing of the aircraft. They are really trying to up their game, I've noticed, and of course Carlos and I will be on an A350 1000 in a week and a bit's time. When we're going to Dubai, so I'm looking forward to that. I've never had a duff flight on BA ever, and that's long haul and short haul as well. But as Al said in the chat room, it's just a bit inconsistent, probably. So some people have good experiences and some don't. But they do lag behind the Middle Eastern and Central European.
If actually Roger Baird is saying in chat room, sort of short, medium, long, super long versus it's very hard to generalise, which is fair comment, because I mean it depends on the product and where you're going as to what the standards will be. I mean, a lot of the short haul flights now, again, unless you pay for it, you don't get a meal, do you? If it's only sort of a short flight, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's where it is. A lot of it depends on the route, where you're going, the end destination. Some airlines are operating, like Emirates going from Dubai into Bangladesh. They're operating it, obviously, because there's more people coming from that way here, and the people that are
yeah.
going back are either people returning or people going for business.
Yeah.
And you just kind of feel that we're operating this because we need to offer it, but it's not.
No, indeed. Well, we could go on and on and on, but we are essentially, I'm afraid, rapidly running out of time. So it is time to start wrapping up. It's been a great
Hey, Matt.
show. Hello, yes, hi.
Yeah. So real quick, I've just got one more little question for Matt, actually.
Yeah,
So our podcast community,
Mhm.
right? The reason we're all in this is not just because we like it. It really is a little community. And you briefly mentioned that you were able to be here in Charlotte for your family because of the generosity of everyone, right? So.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I've got to say that our community, I am absolutely humbled by our community. And I will say the reason why I'm here is my father just passed away on Monday, and I was able to be with him for an hour before he passed away, and which was fantastic. I let my ego go and put it out to the universe for help. And I have 3 kids, and I work my butt off to make sure my kids have everything they need. And it was a bit of a shock when I was told that my father was deteriorating as quickly as he was. And I knew if I didn't try everything in my power to try and get here, I knew I would be regretting it for the rest of my life. So I put it out to GoFundMe, to put it out there, just to see if it could happen. And if it was meant to be, it was meant to be. And my friends in the aviation community, yourself included, and Carlos and other people, Dr. Steph and Captain Jeff and a whole bunch of other people, chipped in to afford me an aircraft ticket and to pay my bills whilst I'm away. I was able to raise $4,500 in 24 hours. And a lot of people I've spoken to afterwards have said they've never seen anything like that before. And all I can say is that it comes back to, I'm grateful that other people around the world think enough of me and my friends, including you guys, love me enough as a friend and as a vicarious family member. It's kind of a weird thing, our community, to enable me to spend that last moment with my father. And I'm completely humbled, and I would just like to say thank you to everybody around the world for making my life, completing the circle in my life to send my father off in peace.
Well, I think it's we've said before, haven't we? It's a wonderful community that we are so lucky to be a part of, and as you say, a story like that, it's pretty amazing, really. So, yes, as I say, from all of us here, Matt, we're obviously we're all thinking of you, and
Thanks, mate.
we'll I'm so glad that you managed to get there in time, and it
means a lot.
It
really does.
It is. Well, I think that's a perfect place to bring things to a close. Carlos, what do you reckon?
Well, I think, Matt, that we should not bring the show to a close now, because, as most of you know, last week we didn't do a live show because Matt had a slight issue with his car parked outside his house here in at the studios, just downstairs. I got the call when I got home from work, just after I got out of the shower, actually. Thanks, Matt. To say
Always
that,
a pleasure. Thanks for that mental image.
To say that,
Thanks for that. Yes.
yeah.
Lovely. Too much
So
detail.
I got the call to say that,
Family show.
as Matt would say, we can't do the live show, Carlos, because my car is on fire. So I quickly hopped round to see Matt and to see how things were, and it's safe to say that the fire service were having slight difficulty in putting out the inferno that was Matt's car. Now I obviously stayed here for a little while with Matt just to keep an eye on him and go and see Mama Smith and make sure things were fine. And after watching Matt operate with the fire service, because all Matt was concerned about was providing the fire service with teas, coffees and hot sausage rolls, which the fire service loved, I will say. So I got home that night from here, and after a lengthy conversation with Captain Jeff, what's that there? Oh, there's a picture of Matt's car in flames there. Yeah, and that was, bear in mind, guys and girls, this car was parked literally
Yeah.
probably about 7 inches away from his house.
Just to the left of that is my house, and in fact, you can just see the little aerial that we use for the 4Gs. Anyway. Yes,
So I got home that night, and I've known Matt for a lot of years, and Matt is an incredible person, which is why I asked him to be on this show. He's done a hell of a lot to help me over the course of the last sort of 15 odd years. I think it's safe to say,
God, I've known
probably
you that
longer
long,
than that.
Really?
So I made a phone call to a very good friend of mine and of Matt's and of many people across the globe, and I spoke to Captain Jeff. I had an idea in my head of something that I wanted to do for Matt, cool, this is not easy for me to talk, but I will continue. Anyway, so I had an idea of what I wanted to do for Matt, and I passed the idea on to Jeff, and we had a bit of a brainstorm as to how we were going to put this in motion. And with the help of Jeff and Auntie Liz, we set the wheels in motion to start a little something to kind of give back to you, Matt. And
What have you done?
we got together with me and many other members of the community across the globe together, and we got you a little gift, and it's in the card here, what we've got you. And
Right.
on behalf of me and Nev, Armando, and everyone in that card, we've got you a little something to say thank you for
Say
being
thank
you, for being you,
Right, okay.
as a kind of help.
I can't
If you
get
wanna-
in, it won't let me in.
Matt's trying to open the card
What's
frantically
going
here.
on?
And failing.
He's failing.
Okay, sorry, this is really terrible radio, isn't it?
I know.
Sorry.
So Matt's opening the card now. So we've
Oh, wow, look at that. Look at that. How cool is that? Love that.
I hope you like the gift that we got you. Anyway,
What? Hang on. What is it?
so Matt, for those of you listening to the audio podcast, basically with the help of the very generous community that we have within the whole podcast community,
No.
we have been able to get Matt a new car, and it's I'm pleased to say it's fully taxed, has a full tank of diesel, and is currently taking up room on my driveway back at home. So Matt, on behalf of everyone in the P2K and the community, aviation community, from us, a new set of wheels, mate.
Set fire to these ones.
I don't know what to say. I mean, obviously, thank you isn't enough. Oh my god! Well, how did
It's amazing what you can
can't
do.
normally organise a piss up in a brewery. What the hell? Wow! Oh my god!
That's from everybody around the world
Yeah.
that loves you, Matt.
Obviously, I couldn't bring the car into the studio. This studio is very small, but if you could come and collect the car at some point, it would be lovely. But it's we thought we'd go all out. We'd get you a top of the range C-Max.
Right.
It's got all the bells and whistles and toys and gadgets and stuff. And yeah, it's just our way of kind of just as Jeff kindly put it, we look after our own.
Guys, I'm completely blown away. I don't know what to say. Wow. I mean, in a way, I mean, this seems so very. I mean, obviously, the story we've heard from Matt tonight as well, and obviously this pales in mere insignificance to obviously what this poor guy's going through.
It's all love. It's all love.
At the moment, but wow! I just wow! I thank you, which is the most useless word in the entire world, but from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I just can't believe it. I actually can't believe it. Thank you to wow! Just wow!
I have to say, when I started the ball rolling last week, I sat at home last weekend and I was just in shock for the generosity of the community and stuff is absolutely phenomenal. You wouldn't believe, Matt, honestly. So, the generosity of our listeners and
Matt,
the community.
would you like to show everybody? So have you got the pictures?
Oh, I put some. Yeah, there's pictures.
Yeah,
of the car.
Pictures would be good.
Yes, of course. Yeah, sorry. This is. Well, Carlos, you're better at this than me. You do that. Sorry, I'm better at pressing buttons.
No, there we go. So that is a. I don't know for you guys in the US, but this is a Ford C-Max. I'm guessing you guys probably have a C-Max in the US.
Captain Rick says, "Can he borrow my car?"
There we go. There's a picture of the interior there, which has a slightly upgraded interior as to Matt's old vehicle.
Well, as I say, I just can't. I'm blown away. I'm beyond blown away. This is as we were only saying a moment ago, it was. I can't believe we are so. This is such an amazing community. Well, thank you guys. I just can't. Lane Street says the steering wheel's on the wrong side, Carlos.
Oh yeah.
This is
Adam Spink says, "Does it have MCAS?"
have
No, I'm
MCAS?
pleased to say the MCAS system has been removed from this vehicle.
Absolutely.
Well, Tony S in the chat room also said, make sure it's got a fire extinguisher.
Yes, that's probably an excellent idea. Isn't it? Yeah. Let's do that. Yeah, let's get a fire extinguisher, shall we? It's right. Hang on, sorry. Somebody's just. Hello, what's going on here? Oh, I see. Yes, here we go.
There we go.
Hang on, we're just popping up a slightly better version of. Let me just do this. Sorry, this is not something that this is a bit useful. Apologies for those listening on the audio version where this will essentially mean absolutely nothing to them. But there we go. There it is.
There is what you have all helped to get for Matt. So thanks everyone.
The lovely blue oval.
Yes.
I love indeed. What a treat, guys! I don't know. I don't know what to say. As I say, thank you is such a pathetic word, really, isn't it? But thank you. Right. Well, we need to go. We need to go and take some photos of me in it.
So that is where we are going to bring episode number 293.
I'm never going to trust you again.
Of
You
the
realise
Plain
that?
Talking UK podcast to a close. Next week, obviously, as you guys know, me and Nev will be off to Dubai, but we will be doing a live show next Friday. But the difference will be I'll be in the Nev Tech Studios next Friday night.
Oh my goodness!
So hopefully Nev can find me a stool or relevant cushion somewhere to sit on.
If I know Nev, he'll probably break out the big camera next week, perhaps for.
We could do, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Just going to say a quick thanks to everyone who's joined us in the live YouTube chat room this evening. Thanks to all the family members in there for joining us, and obviously thanks to everyone again for helping us to look after
and
Matt.
Obviously, again, we're both Matts in this occasion.
Yeah,
obviously, our
definitely,
wonderful community, not only for me, but for obviously Matt, who's currently in Charlotte, which is very good. Guys, we need to get out of this very quickly because we're now.
Will, thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
That's okay.
yeah.
Help you turn his mic up.
Sorry about that.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
He was buzzing a minute ago.
Anytime.
Yeah.
If I'm in the
So
country.
that is where we're going to bring the show to a close. Thanks again, everyone. Take care. Have a great weekend, whatever you're doing. I'm sure Matt will have some fun this weekend.
Yeah.
And on behalf of me, Carlos here, Will and Matt in the PTK studios, Nev and Armando and MBF, Matt Bunting Frame, over in the US. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend.
See you guys.
And goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.